Hola amigo, that's Spanish for G'day Cobber, and this is the Terramar, which is Spanish for earth and sea. But Terramar is also the name of a racetrack near Barcelona in Spain, which is where Cupra is from. But is that a bit pretentious? Naming a mid-size SUV after a racetrack? After all, who's racing these things? Absolutely no one. But Cupra talk a big game when it comes to performance and their vehicles. They try and build some performance DNA into every single thing that they sell. Mid-size SUVs are no exception. But is it really that sporty? Well, that is exactly what we're going to try and find out today.
First, here's a quick rundown of the Terramar. Based on the same underbits as the Volkswagen Tiguan, the Terramar puts a Spanish twist on those mechanicals by wrapping them up in more extroverted sheet metal and sporting an adventurous, driver-centric interior. It definitely fits the Cupra brand profile. Sure, it's shaped like a useful car, but Cupra wants to sell these things on the promise that they're huge fun to drive as well. Here's the range rundown. At the bottom is the Terramar S. In the middle is the Terramar V, which upgrades the powertrain and driveline to a 150 kilowatt 2-litre turbo petrol with all-wheel drive. While at the top, for now at least, is the Terramar VZ, and is the focus of this video. Later on, a plug-in hybrid VZE variant will join the range, though pricing has yet to be confirmed for that one.
Okay, let's take a look at the Terramar's interior, because a lot of car makers like to brag about having driver-focused cockpits, but this particular cockpit is almost hyper-aggressive in how driver-focused it is. I mean, look at the angle of this infotainment screen. This 15-inch screen is, well, you probably can't see it from your viewpoint. We'll have to cut away to, to something that actually shows you the screen, because it's angled right towards me in a way that makes it pretty easy to use for me, but if you're a passenger sitting over there, it's not so easy. But hey, it's a driver's car, right? So who cares about the passenger's enjoyment? Even the USB ports down here are angled towards the driver. That is how asymmetric this dashboard is. From the passenger seat also, you have this gigantic buttress in the way it sort of shrouds the wireless charge pad, which is down here from you. But from the driver's side, everything here falls pretty neatly to hand. So from this side, the ergonomics are fantastic. From that side, not so much, but I don't think Cupra is terribly worried about that. I will also call out the pretty interesting use of materials and textures and colors. If you're the kind of guy or girl who really enjoys a bit of interior design, has an appreciation for architecture, you're probably going to froth over this interior, because this is definitely one of the most creative uses of colors and textures that I've seen in a mid-size SUV. And I think for a lot of people, that's possibly going to make the difference between whether they get in one of these or one of the far more boring mainstream choices in the segment. Okay, so that's the front seat. What's the back seat like? Because let's not forget, this is a mid-size SUV, the kind of car that you are meant to put more than one person in. So let's go check it out. Okay, so this is the natural consequence of having a very driver-focused approach to laying out an interior. These front seats are great for the people in them, but for the people behind them, they do sort of block a lot of the view, and their physical bulk does make it feel a bit hemmed in around the knees. The seats themselves, the rear seats themselves, are actually pretty decent. They're adjustable for recline. They're also adjustable for travel, so you can sort of scooch even closer to that front seat if you really want. That liberates a little bit more room in the boot, which measures, from memory, I think it's 540 litres with the rear seats up, and over 1400 if you drop these seat backs down, which you can also drop just the center section because it's split 40-20-40, so you get this nice pass through here, which is pretty handy. But you do still get some nice attention to detail. You still have that nice ambient lighting shining through on the door trim, which is pretty good. You also have tri-zone climate control, so back here you get some controls for your passengers and also some USB-C. But other than that, it's pretty obvious that a lot of the attention is really on the driver. So with that in mind, maybe let's get out of the city and find a decent road to go do some driving. Okay, so all of that driver-focused cockpit stuff is kind of meaningless if the drive itself isn't actually that much chop, if it's not much fun. Because let's face it, it'd kind of be like putting on a fighter pilot's flight suit to then go fly a Cessna. At that point, you're just pretending, you're playing dress up. So let's find out whether this car, the Cupra Terramar, is playing dress up, or whether it is indeed as fun and agile and dynamic as Cupra's marketing department would have you believe. The other thing is, I'm actually quite familiar with the corporate cousin of this car as well, the Volkswagen Tiguan. In fact, if you are a car sales subscriber, hint hint, that may have been the last time that you saw me in my Volkswagen Tiguan launch review. So if that applies to you, then well, hello once again, but also this should be educational, because I had a good drive of the Tiguan 195 TSI, and that's got the same powertrain as this car, which is the Cupra Terramar VZ. So they both have the same 195 kilowatt, 400 Newton meter, turbo 2 litre, and all-wheel drive system. But there are some key chassis differences. We've got a different tune to the suspension, and we also have different suspension hardware at the front end of the Cupra that's got extra sort of control arm steering linkages going on down there. So does that greatly transform how this thing handles? We're about to find out. All right, let's get stuck in. Now, there's a lot of drive modes to get familiar with, but I'm assuming that you're not watching this video to watch me review comfort mode. So I'm gonna stick it in. What should we choose from? There's performance mode, but then there's also Cupra mode, which is apparently, you know, the most harmonious setting to get the best out of this car. I'm starting in performance mode though, and we'll just leave the gearbox in automatic and see what it does. It's doing good things. So the road is a little bit wet at the moment, and this road is usually kind of wet, especially this time of year, so it should be a good test of the all-wheel drive traction and see how well it manages that. Bit of indecision from the transmission there. It's actually got great traction. We're on pretty decent Continental rubber, 20-inch rims, so pretty big. So we are feeling a fair bit of the road surface here. I'll actually try it in manual mode. Okay. Yeah, that feels a little bit better. I think the sport mode, I think unless you're on a racetrack, that sport mode might just be a little bit confused by roads like this where you're constantly slowing down and speeding up and doing that kind of stuff. But it's pretty sweet in manual mode. We've got these 2 shift paddles either side of the steering wheel. They move with the steering wheel as well, if that's your preference. Okay, and auto upshifts. Not my favorite thing, but hey, this thing is it's hanging on. It's going all right. And I tell you what, the suspension is dealing with this road okay. It's not the smoothest road. In fact, it's pretty far from smooth, especially this section of it. But there's some good body control and good wheel control as well. The wheels aren't sort of skipping over a lot of these lumps and bumps and cambers. And okay, there's a little bit of wheel slip there. Before I run our road, let's try Cupra mode, shall we? Okay, we are in Cupra mode. How different is this? Okay, so there's like a bit of synthetic sound coming through. I guess that's the Cupra sound. Okay, so we're working with like a 6,500 RPM redline, so it's not the highest stepping engine, but geez, it's got pretty good torque, and it works really well with this gearbox. And the all-wheel drive hooks in pretty nicely. There's only one real moment where I could feel a wheel kind of spinning and kind of trying to find traction. But to be honest, for this road, considering it is mostly damp right now and there's a lot of tree debris on the surface, it's a pretty challenging kind of road, even at the best of times. And right now it's pretty slippery. So yeah, look, you could make the argument that this is not a bad substitute for an all-wheel drive hot hatch. You know, say if you're looking for something a little bit bigger than maybe like a Golf R, that kind of thing. This gets close. Maybe not all the way, but yeah, there's some good driver engagement. As for how different it feels versus the Tiguan, the equivalent Tiguan 195 TSI, I think the bulk of the difference is really through this thing, the steering wheel. You do feel a lot more hook in when you turn into a corner. It just feels a little bit more alert off center. Definitely feels like a faster rack. I know that the 195 TSI does have a variable ratio rack like this does. In fact, all Terramar variants do get the variable rack that is available for the chassis, and it works quite well. It does. Steering is quite an important touch point when it comes to making a car feel sporty, and this one is really nice because it doesn't have any slack in it, and it feels really taut on turn-in, but it's also not too sharp. Some cars, in the past at least, have been maybe a little bit too sharp when it comes to steering feel or steering response, and I would say that would be true of something like maybe the Ford Focus RS. That was a really sharp front end, and it was fun, don't get me wrong, but for, if you want to have that kind of feel in something like this, with this SUV form factor, something you're going to be throwing your kids in, it might be a little bit too much. But to be honest, this is fairly versatile in terms of being able to do that performance vehicle stuff, or at least feel like a performance vehicle, and also being comfortable enough that you're not going to hate it on the day-to-day drive. It's got a lot of, let's say, bandwidth, if that helps explain what I'm trying to articulate here. It can cover the comfort side really well, and also the sporty side it's not too bad at. You do always feel that it is a fairly heavy car. This is not a sports car. It's not a MX-5 substitute or anything like that. Don't get any idea like that. This is kind of one of those Swiss Army knife cars, or at least a car that tries to be a Swiss Army knife. It's good for a multitude of things, not especially great at any one particular thing, but it does cover quite a lot of bandwidth, and I think that's kind of how I feel about this. If you are someone who has to, for various reasons, only have one car in your driveway or your carport or your garage or parking spot or whatever, and you want it to be something that's a little bit fun, but you also have pragmatic needs in your life, cars like this, cars like the Cupra Terramar, are probably exactly what you're looking for. And if you are a little bit of a petrol head and you're at a mature age and you need to be a bit more sensible, then yeah, the Terramar VZ is not a bad thing to make you feel a little bit happier in your middle age. Anyway, I'll leave it there for now. I think, look, this is sort of a quick taste of the Cupra Terramar. We are going to surely be looking at it once again, because there is going to be that plug-in hybrid coming. I think that sort of covers a different dimension of motoring than this car does. So be sure, if you haven't already subscribed to the Car Sales channel, go ahead, you know what to do. Follow us, because then you'll see that content when it goes live. But thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with us. I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.